Ever wonder what really happens behind the scenes in construction, real estate, and development? We pull back the curtain on the new home construction industry, the real estate market, and the trends shaping it all. Discover the stories, insights, and expertise behind the process of building a new home. Join us for Trust the Process podcast, and let's build something great together. Welcome back to Trust the Process, podcast where we talk about the real estate industry, the housing market, and everything in between. So throughout the course of a custom or any home build, there is a time lapse that happens. And so now you have personalities, the human side of that. We have an agent, we have a buyer, we have the builder, we have all of those people and how that comes together and some of the fatigue that we feel and how we get through that and the struggles that we conquer together throughout that process. So thought that would be an interesting topic. And if you've ever bought a home, you know. And as a builder, you know, you get tired of...
Yeah, I'm already tired just thinking about it.
It's a lot to drag yourself through and worth it at the end result, but there's some struggle in the middle there.
Yeah, I think, and we're kind of covering two topics here. So we're talking about a real estate transaction where someone's buying one of our builds or buying a build, and that could be at various levels of completion. We have two that are completely done, somebody could move in next week if they were a cash transaction. And then we have 13 or 14 more that are at various stages. Some are 2 months from being completed, some are a year from being completed, depending on, we're just getting out of permitting on one, six of one that we're going to be built at the same time. You know, that's a lot of time. You know, we also have a brokerage, and even a 30-day transaction with a buyer and a seller, you get fatigued day 7, day 10, day 13, but you've got light at the end of the tunnel. You got 2 more weeks to get through it. Hope the move out goes well. Hope everything's clean. Hope the buyers are happy. Hope the house doesn't fall down day 2.
It's a much quicker transaction.
It's just quicker, so you don't fatigue of each other so much. You know, it's so much, and there's a lot less going on. So it's just a couple negotiating factors: appraisal, home inspection, repair request. There's like 3 friction points, including the initial offer. So there's just not as much friction. When someone comes in and buys one of our builds, there's a lot of friction there depending on what stage of the transaction it's in. If someone were to buy, we have 3 right now that are lathed and ready to be stuccoed, the roofs are on them. They're about 2 to 3 months away from being done. Somebody walks into that and doesn't see the cabinets there and wonders why they have to go with the cabinets that we already spec'd.
Right.
Can't you put them somewhere else? No, this is what is spec'd here.
What
about shower towel? What about
lead time on those? What they don't realize is that getting to that point, we had to order those cabinets long before they showed up on the scene, and they're already en route. So that's one of the first things that we need to get out of the way.
Yeah.
But in the buyer's mind, they're like, but why
they're not here yet?
They're not here.
Why can't we just do the other ones?
Change it.
Just change them out. Can you add more? Can you add some plumbing? Can you add some electrical? No. And when I was new in this, especially when it was really becoming a true business about 6, 7 years ago, I made a lot of mistakes. I'll humbly admit that. I made a lot of mistakes about letting buyers come in and rule the show. And you felt so gratified. Oh, someone wants to buy something I created. Of course. Oh, yeah, you want to change this? I want you to love it. That lasted about 3 times. And then now I mean, the contract we have is 99 pages long. We have really strict cutoffs that the whole company buys into. That nope, I don't care who you talk to on site. I don't care if you dealt with the sales side, the marketing side. There's no one person, even me, that can deviate from that. So we made that ironclad for those reasons. But it's those friction points that cause the fatigue. I get tired of saying no. They get tired of hearing no. They start getting resentful about buying a $2.5 million home and they can't change the shower tile because we already ordered it. It's already sitting at BDG's warehouse. It's ready to go in. You know, the labor is queued up for Tuesday and it's Friday. You're asking us to change it. No, I'm sorry. We can't change it. Can you add an outlet? No, there's just things that we cannot deviate from. So you get some bad blood. It's natural and it's okay. I've priced that into the equation now as a builder to say, you know what? It's not my responsibility to make them love this house. I'm building this house. If they love it, then they should buy it. And if there's things that they want to do to it after to make them love it more, that's on them. I can't be responsible for making sure they walk in on day 1 and saying, oh, this is perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. It's just not realistic. That's not, you can't make a business out of that. That's a hobby at that point where you say, oh, I build really great custom homes, and I build one house a year, and I work with a client and blah, 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 and we basically work as we're basically being commissioned to build the house. And we do have some build-to-suit clients like that, but they pay accordingly. They pay for that convenience, and they're looking down the barrel of a 2 to 3 year commitment with us. So
there's a fatigue that goes into that too.
Usually fatigued by the time we sign the contract. In fact, we've walked away from as recently as last month a massive build that would have been huge for the company, and we just didn't have the personality match. And that's exactly
being able to recognize that on the front end saved so much headache, so much heartache, so much who knows.
To use that as an anecdote, I know the builder that they chose. I know the company that they chose, and I can assure you that we made the right decision by walking away. I won't get into any more detail. Maybe off camera I will.
Okay.
But we made the right...
Of course you will off camera.
Of course. We were at our second meeting. After the first meeting, I realized it was a foregone conclusion that I was not going to be able to work with this guy. And then the second was more of a courtesy to say, well, maybe it was me. Let's go in with more concrete numbers at a second meeting. And you saw me turn 4 shades of red. This ain't going to work. Yeah. It's not going to work. Yeah. And we walked away from it. And I sent a really nice email.
You did.
And unfortunately, our personalities are not compatible for a 2-year build on a 9,000 square foot home. It was a massive home that hugged the hillside. It was for a celebrity.
Yeah. Huge project.
Big project. And it would have been cool for the company. And
great accolades for the company. And still your integrity said, I just can't take it. Yeah.
Can't do it. Can't do it. So those are the fatigues. As a builder, I fatigue much quicker because even though this is my business, I already, when you have young kids and they're going to freak out over one thing and you're so tired of that friction point, whether it's brushing their teeth or whether it's going to bed, sometimes this business feels like that. Like, can we change this refrigerator to the other side of the kitchen? No. And when you say no, you're waiting for the tantrum, you're waiting for the build-up, you're waiting for the 4 a.m. email or 3 a.m. email where they're fired up and they're got a bunch of things to say to you. Yep. And that's where I fatigue. Like, here we go.
And part of it is setting an expectation from the start. And letting them know this is the timeline we're under. These are the things we will and won't change. And so if you can lay all that up front, it does help some. You still end up
100%.
You still end up in the battles.
100%.
But you at least have some leverage to, and like you said, we're a 100-page contract.
Yeah.
So much of that is outlined in there. And remember when we talked about XYZ, let's reference back and see what it gives you something to lean into and helps them to recognize we're not just being difficult. This is how we build.
Exactly. And there's a reason why you can come to us and have a brand new, basically semi-custom. It's custom to us, but you semi-customized it and you were in it in 3 to 4 months. Yeah. If you started from nothing, you're at 3 years. Minimum 2. So you're in something within the same calendar year many times. There's going to be some things that you give up with that. So it's that friction that really can fatigue the entire team.
And the funny thing is,
that's the other thing too.
Yes.
And if I were to say that I'm not emotional, then I'd be lying because I 100% get emotional. Number one, about the company and about the team. If someone's disrespectful, we had a client a couple of years ago that was so incredibly disrespectful to the team, never even directly to me, and I just could not work with that person anymore. We did exactly what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to do another project with them, completely canceled that. Just not going to do it. Unfortunately, you're too mean to the team. You think that you can speak to people in a manner that doesn't convey respect and doesn't convey the fact that we are actually all a team. And you and your wife changed this, and this, and you're wondering why your timeline has been pushed out 3 months. And you're blowing us up at 4 a.m. with no consideration of our lives. And you don't own us when you go to contract with us. We are here to perform something.
That's that you don't own us. It's still, and yes, it's a symbiotic relationship, and we're here to help you, and you're here to help us, and we'll work together, but
we're all a team. And we're only as strong as you are. So if you're going to be changing things, or if you're going to be emotional, and you're going to be blowing up, and that's when you talk about agent fatigue. We get agent fatigue as well with our company. When we have a buyer's agent coming in trying to make themselves a hero, and all they're doing is compromising their client's position, because they don't know the industry standards. They don't know the steps. Everyone becomes a building expert the minute they sign on the dotted line.
Right.
And the minute an agent brings a buyer, they might have done 5 transactions last year and they've done 1 new construction in 10 years, but they become a construction expert at that time.
Yep. And then they start picking things apart and they start looking
and they
for
don't
different
know
timelines and trying to win.
They try, exactly. But all you're doing is
commission.
ruining, you're souring the well. Because we ultimately still have to work together, and we have these discussions even on the brokerage side. Yes, technically, you as a seller don't have to do X, Y, and Z, but do you want to do that and keep goodwill? Because maybe you had some major emergency, you weren't able to get to the signing table on time, blah blah blah. Now you have a 2-day delay in closing, and you need that buyer's goodwill to make sure this all stays together. Or you couldn't get out, the house recorded at 4. Technically, the contract says any personal property that's left in the home at time of recording becomes the new buyer's property. I left a car in the garage and I wasn't able to get there in time. Well, technically, I mean, car's different because there's a title to it, but still, I mean, you could have a dispute on your hands. So why would you sour the well and be so belligerent? And unfortunately, that's probably 50% of the time we get buyers that are like that on our builds, and they just... or the agent wants to be here or something.
Yeah, I think the agents tend to...
It fluffs up problems where there maybe wouldn't be problems. So we talk about the fatigue that we feel. That's what we feel. I fatigue first. Sorry, agents in the audience. I fatigue first with the agent, right? Because they're coming in, they're getting a massive payday. Yes, that payday is associated with the client that they brought us. But on a $3 million home, those are big paychecks for those agents. And instead of working with us to help better their client's experience and iron out things, they're working against us.
Agreed.
And they're thinking it's an adversarial relationship. And you came from a tonnage builder. You came from a builder that closed a lot of transactions and was pretty adversarial with agents.
Indeed.
And didn't pay them.
We didn't, we didn't need them at the time. That builder doesn't need the agent interaction, and it does nothing but sour the deal. And then they come in trying to, hardball on a home that, we can sell the homes without their interaction.
Right, especially that where his niche was. He was an entry level, high volume in a really bull market.
Yeah.
So
luxury is different. We expect for there to be an agent,
100%.
and I do want for that
and
buyer
I love
to have the
partnering with
representation.
agents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as an agent myself, right? I mean, you from the brokerage and myself as an active, on the resale side too. So I can respectfully know that there is a position for that, and you want that buyer to have that support. But you also need for that agent to understand that we're all in it together, right? And so we're all working together to a common goal. It's not you against me. It's not him against them. No. It's us together in this against the obstacles that building a home will bring.
There's already enough trials and tribulations that come with it. We don't need to have this kind of adversarial one-upsmanship and, the house, we had a great example last year. Cleaned the house, everything left. The agent walks through one more time because the buyer wasn't planning on moving in for 2 more weeks. And she's like, this place is filthy. She's sending us pictures of dust on the pendant lights and things like that. And as it turns out, also the driveway was dirty. All the pavers are filthy. As it turns out, in the 2 weeks that elapsed since closing, the buyers had a really robust security system put in, which caused a lot of dust from drilling. And the agent didn't notice there were cameras and sensors and didn't realize, that was Eagle well, I won't say the name of the company.
That was the
security company. And then the driveway was filthy because she neglected to check the garage, and the garage had been epoxied. So when they ground down all the concrete and pressure washed it, the company that did the epoxy left the driveway a mess, and it became our problem. And I remember calling my partner and going, there's no way we left the house like that. There's no way we left the driveway like that, because I was there on closing day. I remember how it looked. I would have definitely said, hey, let's send out somebody to clean this driveway out.
Right.
And that caused us to investigate further. And maybe she was doing it for one-upsmanship, or maybe she was just like automatically ready for a fight. But it just, all those stories over the years when you've taken all this risk, because that was a spec home that I built. I've taken all this risk. I purchased the land. It had been 2-year project. They came in 45 days before it was done, went to contract and closed the minute we got the certificate of occupancy. And then the agent blows in and gets a huge payday and let's say you did find that the builder could have done a little bit better job with cleaning, which is not true because we always clean them right at the very end.
Yes.
If you made $93,000 on a transaction, maybe spend $180 or $250 on
that as a courtesy for
cleaner.
Your buyer.
Do it as a courtesy for your buyer, just to say, I'm going to smooth this out. This is how I built my brokerage business, by doing things like this. you can even look like a hero to your buyers and say,
Sure.
yes, the builder cleaned it. However, it's not my standard of clean. I'm not going to go sour the well with you and the builder. So I went ahead and just sent my cleaners in. I hope that's okay. But the house looks more on my standards of how a house should look when you take possession of it, especially new construction,
Let's
luxury
think
home.
it through. You know, what are the variables that may have created all this dust? Okay, well, if they were doing
They have owned
grinding
it for
in the
2
driveway,
weeks.
in the
Maybe we should
garage.
make sure that they didn't make this mess.
I mean, you don't
Right.
just assumptively imagine that the builder left it a mess.
Right.
But if you haven't thought it through, then
Right.
that
If
would
you're-
not be how it looks,
Yeah,
right?
if your knee-jerk reaction is, well, I better
Yeah.
show value, I better beat
Right.
these guys up, and my buyers are going to think I'm a hero. And by the way, just candidly, she didn't look like a hero to them. In separate conversations with them, we had to do a little bit of warranty stuff with their pool, and that didn't impress.
Yeah.
That type of behavior doesn't generally impress buyers.
Because they were fatigued with her.
They were
right?
fatigued with her, exactly. And we
Yeah,
had already
that
built
way.
enough goodwill that they knew, okay, well, that doesn't. And she was wrong, so she had lost some credibility. And for every one of those stories, I have 10 more behind it that I could think of, right, if I really sat down and thought about what that looks like. So there were times where I was very disenchanted with having buyer's agents at all, but unfortunately in the luxury market, we build in a lot of niche markets, like South Shore. I need really strong agent connections so that when they have a buyer coming into town, they're a really reputable agent. I know they're going to make sure they at least get through my homes and look at my inventory. So that's goodwill that comes both ways.
For
I don't
sure.
just assume that the agent comes in a submissive position to me and has to have goodwill. I understand that
Right.
I want to have goodwill and a good reputation.
Yeah.
But I also will not bend from my standards and industry standards as well for the sake of someone's expectations or ego. Of course, the theory in business, you should always delight your customer. I think homes are delightful. And if you don't see it that way and you think that this could have been different or better, well, then we're just going to have to agree to disagree.
Yep. You know, you walk into a car dealership, you're spending a big chunk of money, and you see the car, it's there, it's finished, you test, you push all the
Right.
buttons, you know exactly what it does, you drive it, it's great, we'll take it. And there's a media exchange, it happens over the course of the
That's
day. This is a very different
That's it.
thing, and homes are built on site and by human hands,
Out
and
of imperfect
things
materials.
might be things
And-
might be slightly varied from what your vision may have been, and
Right.
because the home, you're looking at a dirt lot when it starts sometimes, and so we're giving you this impression of, you know, maybe your vision was different than ours. There's so many things that could go awry.
And another thing, the car example, or that consumer good example, homes aren't consumer goods. They are really more assets that happen to be beautiful homes.
True, good point.
Trust Home Builders is building.
Yeah.
But a car, you could go get that Yukon down the street, most likely, or you could go to Phoenix, or you could go, you know, this is the house on this lot. Do you want it or not? So you're buying the house, you're not buying the process. And I would have dust ups many times with agents and even my own buyers say, we are not the Four Seasons. It's not just about the experience. It is going to be stressful. It's going to be frustrating. There's going to be delays. There's going to be things that didn't turn out the way you thought they were. But this is not about the experience. This is about the product that's being turned over. And it's one reason why we took a pause for a couple of years on build to suit clients, because after 2 or 3 years, you are so fatigued of each other.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that can change and didn't turn out the way they thought, and they blame you or whatever. There's always somebody to blame that's not them. Their relationships always struggle. You know, you're mending up a marriage. Many times people are building a big grand home to save the marriage.
Or they've just
to-
gotten married and they don't know a lot about each other. And they're
Yeah,
trying
there's
to,
just a lot of bumpiness. So.
And typically there is some transition, be it move up, move down, whatever it is, there is a transition or a situation within their own current life that's pushing them to want to build.
Exactly,
or-
right.
Yeah.
So there might be stressors there. But I always tell the team, we are not their therapist. We're not here to tell
Sometimes
them. Yeah.
you feel like it.
Sometimes
in
you
that
feel like
industry,
it, but we can't let the client's emotions dictate how the build goes or the transaction, or let it stress out the team.
And you said you're not buying the process. I might argue that you are, you're not buying the process, you're signing up for that process.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we are the expert in that field. Our train is in motion. We know what happens next. We know all of the process and everything that will go step by step by step. If you're going to get on this train with us, you're going to ride it in the direction we're taking you, and we can't make stops
Right.
that weren't in.
That's right. And
You
we
just-
can't answer, are we there yet, any more times? You know, we're not there.
True. Right.
So I agree. And I like that thought. Yeah, they are signing up for it though.
They're signing up for it,
Yeah.
right? And it's an inevitable part of building a home, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has to be built. And so there has to be some,
There's friction.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're signing up to build a new home, be
Don't
it with
call us.
Trust Home Builders,
Boy, we really
be it
sold
with
ourselves.
Trust or another builder, expect that. If you're buying a resale home with an agent, expect that. And the
Even
builders,
renovating a home. I mean,
even if you're entering into a renovation project, expect that there will be fatigue and frustration, and the process itself is really just that. But know, if you're working with a professional, you have to.
You gotta trust
There's
them.
got to be the give and take.
You
Yeah.
have to
So
trust the process.
you got to trust the process.
we should name
Yes.
the podcast that.
We should. Wouldn't that be a great idea?
That'd be great.
And thank you for joining us on that Trust the Process podcast. So we'll see you next time. And until then, bye-bye. Thanks for tuning into the Trust the Process podcast. Make sure to follow us on Spotify to stay in the loop with the latest insights, project updates, and everything in between. See you next time.